back, everyone. Today we're going over the Chinese Type 53 Mosin variant. One of the cheaper centerfire rifles you can get on the market right now. We're going to go over what you can expect from it, some of the features of it, and just what I think of it overall. Coming up next.
We'll get into some of the details here up front. Here on the front sight, we have an encased post front sight. It is drift adjustable for windage. Moving down here, we have our bayonet. Taking a look at it there, you'll see it resembles the M44 bayonet a lot, which a lot of things on this rifle are going to do. But to activate and deploy the bayonet, what you do here is you just pull back on it, swing it out. You're going to pull out now and hook it on there. And that's how the bayonet is mounted. Some rifles out there are going to be zeroed with the bayonet extended, others aren't. It really just depends on your specific rifle when you get it in, but that's something to look out for there. If you get it in and your windage is way off, try putting that bayonet on there and you may find it zeroed that way. Moving on to the handguard of the rifle here, we do have two springs that retain these retaining bands here. The retaining bands, for those of you that are new to the platform, they do retain this top handguard here. So that way, if you want to take it off to disassemble the rifle for cleaning or removing that Cosmo aim when you first get it in, you just slide these forward and then you can remove top handguard and a couple extra steps here at the base of the rifle back near the trigger guard, and you can have the whole rifle disassembled. The rear sight is a leaf type sight, common on a lot of communist surplus weapons. It is graduated in 100-meter increments all the way out to 1,000 meters. Just behind the rear sight, you're going to find the receiver markings here of the rifle. Up top here, you see this is the factory marking. Generally, it's going to be either 26 or 296. You see the Chinese characters, and then behind that, we're going to have the year it was produced, and then the serial number of it. Now, these markings will change a little bit depending on when it was produced. Some of the later ones, like 1960 and 1961, they're going to have more clearly defined and larger markings, but the earlier ones are generally going to look like this. Some of them are going to be white, others are going to be just bare metal like you see here, depending on when the rifle was produced again. So it started production in 1953, hence the name Type 53, and went all the way in our examples all the way out to 1961. There may have been production after that. At this point, we don't know, but the latest examples that we've seen have been 1961. The bolt on the Type 53 is a standard Mosin bolt, so to unlock the bolt, you just push up, it unlocks from the chamber, pull it back, exposing your magazine in your chamber. This is how you can load from this position. You have your round here, 7.62 by 5.4 round. For those of you unfamiliar with that, it's a pretty powerful round. They are relatively equivalent in terms of velocity and weight to the 30-06 bullets that we're more familiar with here in America, so it does have some power behind it and the capability to reach out and touch something at a distance. These ones here, though, are generally available on the surplus market even today for about 20 to 22 cents a round, so a very affordable cartridge and very capable cartridge as well, even after all these years. But to load it, you're just going to push down into the magazine. The magazine is capable of holding 5 rounds, and there are stripper clips to aid in loading, but these days, in my opinion, those stripper clips are kind of junk. The ones coming into the country anyway, and I just prefer to load without them. But to go ahead and chamber around, you're just going to grab the bolt, push it forward, and lock it down. From this point, you can put it on safe by pulling back on the rear of the bolt and turning 45 degrees, and to put it back on fire, you just pull back and let it go forward again. At this point, you can fire. Now, if you don't want to go ahead and unload all those rounds by working the action each time, you can also take the button here on the bottom of the magazine and just pull back, open it up, and your rounds will come out the bottom like that, so you don't have to actually work the action for each one. On the rear of the stock here, we do have our metal butt plate. It's reinforced to add durability in case the rifle's dropped. And there's actually some instances in Vietnam of reports of the smaller statured soldiers, or enemy soldiers I should say, firing these rifles from by propping them up against a tree because they were afraid of the recoil from the carbine, because it is a little bit stout. I can imagine some of those guys probably only weighed 100 pounds, so it might have kicked a lot for them. So that metal butt plate did reinforce it. And back here we have our rear sling attachment point, made just for a strap type sling, so you can put those through. There are a ton of slings available for these rifles out there on the surplus market. You can get them for like $5 to $10 on eBay. I'll just get into a quick and dirty history on these rifles, since I know a lot of guys out there are somewhat interested in that. The Chinese in the early 1950s found themselves in need of a new rifle for the People's Liberation Army after the Communist Revolution, and they wanted a light and handy carbine, if you will. Not that this is really light, it comes in at 9 pounds, but the carbine part of it, it does do well. It has a 20-inch barrel and overall length of only 40 inches, so for the time in the 1950s, that was a short rifle for military use. But they turned to their neighbors in the north, the Russians,
the Russians sent over technical advisors as well as machinery to make these rifles in China. Now, the advantage of that was that the Chinese could have their national pride saying they were 100% made by Chinese workers in China, which is important if you're a communist. And also, later on, when these rifles sort of became obsolete and the Chinese started producing the SKSs, it allowed the Chinese to export these rifles to their satellite partner nations, if you will, around the world. So these rifles saw action in Vietnam, as a lot of GIs found out, and then also several regional conflicts in Peru, Angola, Cambodia. Really, the list goes on. It's pretty long. So these rifles have definitely seen some use, and many of them that come into the country now show it. But all in all, they're still a good rifle, no getting around it, but the wood's going to be a little bit rough, and the wood that's used on here is called chew wood. And for those of you guys that watch my refinishing video, and for those of you who didn't, check it out if you're looking to refinish these guns. It's very difficult wood to work with, if you will, compared to Western wood that we're used to on rifles. It's very soft, but it is very resistant to wet conditions, so for use in Southeast Asia, that makes a lot of sense. So you can clean them up and make them into decent shooters. This one here shoots about 6-inch groups at 100 meters. I have another one that shoots about 4-inch groups. But you want to obviously inspect them first, check those bores out. They're going to look a little rough compared to some of the other variants out there, but in general they will still shoot just fine. If you guys have any questions about this gun, anything else we talk about here on the channel, you can always post below in the comments section. If not, you can always post over at my Facebook page. But as always, guys, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I hope to see you in the next video.